Welcome to the Why Music podcast, where we talk to independent artists about their journeys, the inspirations behind their music, and ultimately why they make music. This next artist is a Brisbane-based singer-songwriter who's only just getting started. Blending smooth vocals with folky acoustic guitar, it's the raw and honest sound that you've been craving to hear. Welcome, Georgia.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I always like to start with where your music story journey kind of all started.
It's always an interesting one when I get asked that. I think music's something I really had to kind of find myself as I grew up. You know, as a child, you try all sorts of different things to see what is you, what fits. And when I was in primary school, I lived in Adelaide and then I moved to Melbourne. And during my time in Melbourne, I was very sporty. I liked art, but I never really got into music. My parents put me into piano. I didn't love it. And when I moved to Brisbane, the primary school that I went to had a great music curriculum, and the choir, for some reason, it really interested me, and the band there. And my piano teacher at the time was selling a clarinet. So I actually stopped piano lessons with her and bought her clarinet and ended up falling in love with that and in love with choir. So I think high school is where I really kind of got into it and delved myself into the music scene at my high school. They had a really good program, and I was in like six ensembles running around the place playing music. And I started putting my music out there into the world, busking on the streets when I was in year 9. I got a little busking speaker for my birthday and went out for the first time to a little market and played with using the keyboard and everything. And then it was a year later that I found the guitar and just I fell in love with it. And I guess everything kind of spiraled from there quite rapidly. Yeah.
Oh, so you went from piano to clarinet and then found your way back to piano?
Um,
Or did piano never really leave?
it has left. Um, no, I picked up clarinet, and the thing is, when I took my music to the street, I was very much a singer, but I needed something to accompany myself. So I was
Right.
like, oh, well, I know basic piano. But then in year 10, at the end of year 9, I picked up my dad's guitar that we actually bought him because he wanted to learn, but never did. And I thought, oh, mate, that doesn't look too hard. Maybe I'll give it a go. Anyway, I picked it up and I just fell in love with it. And since then, piano's kind of fallen
Faded into the
out of the picture.
background.
It's very much acoustic guitar. I love that acoustic sound. And I think, yeah, it was really interesting experience because I did have to go through that journey and process of finding it
Hmm.
myself, which I think is in a way really rewarding because when I found it, I was like, yes, that's right. You know, I didn't have to be pushed in any direction or influenced by anyone in particular. It's like I found it and I just went with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the longer it takes you to get to the destination, sometimes the more you appreciate the journey.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's yeah. Do you incorporate like obviously guitar is the thing. I can't blame you for that. It's a lot easier to carry one of those around than it is a keyboard or piano.
Yeah.
But do you think that like what was it about guitar that like opened the
Mm.
doors into, you know, I don't know necessarily where the songwriting began in this process, but like
Mm.
what was it about guitar that sort of like unlocked this new idea, this new
Mm.
opportunity, whereas piano wasn't quite really fitting the bill?
It's interesting because I don't really know because I think my passion for folk acoustic music really grew like after kind of finding my sound as an artist. So I definitely wasn't influenced by anything in particular, I don't think. It just felt right, really. Playing it, it felt right and it was easier to write music with. And I guess that was just me falling into my musical style without any external influence, which again is so interesting.
Yeah. I,
It just felt right. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I was gonna say like it usually when it comes to where you kind of fall in terms of the way that you make music or the types of music that you make, whatever, like there's some aspect of what you write and then produce and turn into like complete songs that comes from what you listen to. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
that's really interesting that you went this, you were like, hey, this like folky acoustic vibe is for me, but none of that is
Mm.
anything that like struck a nerve listening to or anything like that. Do you find yourself consuming it more now that you're like immersed in it as a creative, or is it still like there's something about it that just doesn't necessarily jive for me as much as you would think it does?
No, 100%. I think, yeah, it kind of happened the other way around where I found it myself and it felt right. So I went with it. And then I guess, explored the genre a little bit more with what I was listening to. And I'm an absolute folk obsessed person now. I mean, I have my own folk radio show, and it's pretty much all I listen to. I actually listen to a great deal of American folk, um, a great deal. And I think that's definitely had a little bit of an influence on my music now. Like, I'm about to buy a banjo because a lot
Oh,
of the music I listen to in like that American folk genre has banjo. So I think I'm being more influenced by it now, whereas before I just kind of went with what worked with my voice and my storytelling. Yeah.
interesting. I get that to some degree because it's like once you kind of find the fit, it's like you
Mm.
almost have like a new appreciation for how like that music is, and especially knowing what goes into the creative process of said genre. You kind of then seek it out more, and then it's like then that's when you kind of can get more intentional with
Mm.
what you're listening to and be like, oh, I really like what's
Mm.
done here, and then I can incorporate that in my stuff, and it's like it to
Yeah.
some degree, we start just listening to whatever we're listening to, but then as you kind of funnel it down a little bit and you're like
Mm.
more intentional with it. And then it's like, okay, now you're just
Mm.
like picking out little sounds here and there that you like that
Mm.
you want to use. And then it's like
Mm.
the brand is just building itself at that point.
I think it's so hard in like this music world right now to step aside and find a sound yourself. It's often, you listen to something or you're influenced by something and you want to, oh, I really like that Bob Dylan song, or I really like that Amy Shark song, whatever, artists influence you. It's so easy to fall in that trap of how can I create something like that. So I think it's really important for artists to kind of just step away for a moment and just write what feels good to them, because we don't have to be anyone else other than ourselves, I think. So that ability to just step back and let yourself do what feels right, I think is important. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's always great to, there's the saying of like steal like an artist, where it's like you can take
Mm.
all these ideas from everything that you consume, music or not, but it's like at
Mm.
the end of the day, like make sure that even if you're a culmination of all the different things that you consume, make sure that that is still a new and fresh idea and you're doing it in a way that isn't like fabricated and it's not intentionally like, oh, I want to make this so I sound like XYZ, or
Mm.
trying to meet this certain, whether it's something that you set for yourself or something that someone else has kind of impressed upon you. Like make sure whatever it is that you're doing is intentionally authentic and not like just trying to be the 2.0 version of whoever you so please.
Mm. 100%. I think it just feels better as well.
Yeah.
Like, you'll enjoy
What's
it
the
more.
point of art if it's not
You'll
just
enjoy
your
it
own
more.
thing?
Exactly.
Yeah. Uh, where do you find inspiration for a lot of your music for the songwriting?
Yeah, again, I think it's something that you can only write about what you know. I personally feel, because I have so many people that, say to me, oh, why not write about a fictional story? Or maybe you've watched a movie and you want to write a song from a character's perspective, like just for something new. I really struggle with that. And I think the songs that I have written from a different perspective haven't felt as much, like haven't had that core emotion that you get from a song that you understand and you feel yourself. So I think writing from your own perspective and certain things that have happened in your life is so much easier to just feel real and to create that deeper connection with someone that's listening to your song. So definitely in the past, I mean, I've written an album which is slowly trickling out, entering the world. And I wrote that last year after lots of changes happened in my life. And so writing about relationships, friendships, new life experiences, if you can connect to it, I'm sure someone else out there can as well. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm totally on board with the idea that you like write what you know, that's what's going to be the most true to you. Like I don't necessarily hate the idea of taking a dabble in these other sorts of ideas
Yeah.
just to,
Mm,
get the creative juices flowing because you can only feel
100%.
so many heavy emotions for your own sanity
Exactly.
in a day, in a weekly basis. But I think what you claim as your own art and what you proclaim out to the
Mm.
world should be something that is true, personal, authentic, checking all those boxes and just let it be what it's going to be. And I also am of the mind that if the music in terms of quality, and when I say quality I mean like the way it is, like sonic, like as an audiophile quality, that it it will find its home in someone's ears, because a lot of the things that we then write from our own personal experience is a shared human experience. And so then at that point it's like somebody's going to relate to it. Somebody might not necessarily like the way it's packaged in
No.
whatever genre or whatever corner of the music landscape you sit in. But if you keep kind of putting and communicating those ideas out there and doing it the way that you please and the way that you feel is like you, it's only a matter of time before it finds the ears that it belongs to. It's just a matter of who your fan is, not necessarily whether they exist or not.
Oh, 100%. I think there's an audience for everyone. I am a strong believer of that. And if you're creating music that you're passionate about and that makes you excited, someone else will be excited because, yeah, it is authentic and you are motivated and inspired, and someone else will be able to hear that in your music. Yeah.
Yeah. And like the excitement and the energy and the like authenticity is infectious in its own kind of
Mm,
way, where it's
mm.
like if you're putting the right energy into it and you're actually like investing yourself into what you're doing, it's going to catch on some way, somehow, some time frame. Everybody's different, everybody's path is different, everybody's timeline is different. It could take somebody 2 songs and it could take somebody else 100. Who knows? But it's just a matter of doing the things and doing it for the sake of art being art rather than like anything else. If you keep it authentic and you just keep doing the things, it's only time will tell.
True.
So
So true.
moral of the story today. That's about
Really.
it. um if you had to create a new genre around your style of music, what would it be called?
Mm, that's such an interesting question. Oh, I've never thought about this before. I kind of have an idea of what my music is kind of a mix of. I'd say
Okay.
you've got like a bit of folk, a bit of country, a little bit of indie in there. I had I've had heaps of people tell me that my music sounds a little bit Irish. as
Interesting.
well with the instruments that I incorporate.
Okay.
Um, and maybe like kind of Irish lilt feel with, the brush sticks on the drums and everything,
Mm.
which is really interesting because I would have never thought that, but
You would
that's
have never
just
tied that
what
to be
it's.
Irish?
No,
I
I
wouldn't have
don't know. I
either.
don't
So
listen to a lot of Irish music, but I can definitely understand where that comes from. But when I'm writing it, I'm not thinking, yes, I want to incorporate the brush
there's that
sticks
Irish
on the
influence.
drums because, yeah, right. But I think that's really interesting that I think within the music industry that we have today, defining a genre for someone is so incredibly hard. Everybody's kind of dabbling in this, dabbling in that,
Hmm.
and nobody's stuck in one genre. And it's this big tapestry of color and sounds that you can't just assign one genre
Hmm.
to. And I think that's really cool. So I haven't really answered your question. I don't know what I would name the genre that I'm in, but I also don't think that matters because there's so much music out there, you know? Like there's so much music out there that you can't put a name on things anymore. Yeah,
Are you
that's
debating
my
your way out
answer.
of the answer?
I think I am. I didn't come prepared for this one. No, but yeah, honestly, it's something I've never thought of. I think something that underpins my music is storytelling.
Mhm.
So it would be something along the lines of like stories coming from the heart, right? That's my whole motivation with music is just to connect people to
Mhm.
people through that storytelling. So a mix of that and then apparently a mix of Irish music.
Little hint of it just here and
I
there,
don't
right?
know.
Yeah, I mean, this question always catches everybody off guard and everybody hates
Mm,
answering it, and I usually get this culmination of
mm,
like six different genre titles just kind of thrown back to me. I
mm,
always like to think about it in the way of like in the because you're 100% right. Like everybody is like I have a playlist of like music moving like directing me towards like what I want to do with my next project. And I
yeah.
can't even tell you how many different artists and songs are on there that I could take little bits of this, little bits of that, and it's just
Mm-hmm,
it's
mm-hmm.
a whole mess. And it's like because everybody kind of we're it's so with the way that we consume music now, it's so overlapping, it's so intermixed. Like what's folk could also be rock, could also be pop, could also be all these
Right.
different things,
Yeah.
and it's impossible to just pick one. But I always
It's
like to
so
think
cool
about
though.
it is like, what is it about what you're doing musically that's different? Like, what's that word we're throwing on to, I guess, what our main title would be in folk? What word are we tossing at that to like further categorize it as folk that's specific to you as an artist? That's the way I think about it. So what's the it doesn't have to be a
Mm.
music word. Like people get very limited by the true genre words, but like what is it that further categorizes you and that puts you in this own your own little corner in the nice little world that is the folk music
Mm.
space these days?
I think the word I always use is reflective.
Okay.
I with a lot of my music, especially the songs that I wrote after, like breakup or friendship changes and all of that, you hear a lot of that kind of music that's very kind of hard hitting, like hard punching and like a little bit aggressive in the lyricism. I never gravitated to that. And for me, the writing process for that was reflective. How can I reflect on this time through my music rather than filling my music with hatred? Um, so I think a word that I strongly use all the time would be reflective. Someone can listen to it and go, I really feel that, but I feel no hate. I feel calm and at peace and that I can work through this. Yeah.
So we'll reflective folk action. That's what we got
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah. I like that. I think that's I think that's fitting to kind of that style of music as well as it is just like a nice approach. Like we don't need to be
Mm.
angry about these things. We can have those moments. We can feel those feelings at times, but the overarching thing doesn't need to be this
No.
forceful, aggressive feeling. Like we can just life goes on.
Mm.
Let's deal with it. Let's
Mm.
accept it as it is. Let's take it as a learning experience and let's move to the next
Mm.
thing, you know?
The world is full of so much just hate and anger, and it is easy in a situation to feel that and go straight to that
Hmm.
feeling and work with that. But I think it's so important to just kind of let it be. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, like, really, what is being angry about it gonna do? Is it gonna change the situation? No, you're just gonna be angry about it. Like, you're just gonna, you might end up doing something that you would end up then regretting. Anger does drive a lot of unsolicited and unintentional action at times. And you're right, the world is full of too much of it.
Mm.
And it just, like, what is being angry about it gonna do? You know, there are other ways that we can handle this. There are other
And
ways that
music
we can
can
approach the
help.
situation.
Yeah. Music can help those feelings for people. So I guess that's what I want to help people with is that try and view this situation from this perspective instead,
Right.
because
Uh,
music drives it so much. Yeah.
yeah. No, and I think this goes back to the point that we were just talking about where it's like all music kind of has its own home. If you're looking for something that's angry, this isn't necessarily where you're going to find that home. If you're kind of at this like at peace moment with it and you're kind of like whatever the like I think anger is one of the stage. I don't know which stage of grief it is, but it's one of them. And then maybe we're past that and we're in this acceptance point. When you hit that acceptance point, here's where you can come. You know, once
Yeah.
we're past the anger, here's where we go.
Yeah.
Here's where we go. We go to reflective folk. Okay, we come back. We
Yeah.
find the acceptance here.
100%.
Um, is there a song that you've written that you think best embodies who you are as an artist?
Yeah, definitely. I actually think it's my most recent release. I released it yesterday. So it is out.
It exists.
It exists in the world, which I'm so excited about. It's my third single for my album, and it's called Cursive. And it definitely goes along the lines of what we were just talking about of viewing something in like a peaceful way, and that moment within this period of change in your life where you feel like things are kind of going your way. And it's my song that I describe. It feels like a big warm hug from the earth. Um, and the instruments that I've incorporated in it are so wide and diverse. So I really think if you like this song, like you'll like what I do. I have banjo in it, like I've got piano in it, acoustic guitar, brush drums, clarinet, viola, violin, bass, electric guitar.
Oh.
So it's got all these different little Georgia Scarlett flavors in there. And yeah, I think if you like the sound of this, you should come back.
You should stay tuned because there's a whole album coming out soon enough.
Yeah. 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 No, I really like that kind of folk instrumentation, but also being able to bring in instruments like the clarinet. I mean, you don't hear it a lot in more, I guess, popular music. And I kind of want to bring it back because it is such a beautiful instrument and creates such warmth and depth in a song. So being a clarinet player myself, I didn't want to say goodbye to it and not use it in my Georgia Scarlett project. I want it to be alive in my music because it's an instrument I've always loved. And I think why can't you have that, right?
No
That's
one's
that
telling you
whole
no.
creation of a new genre.
Yeah.
Why can't I put these two things together? So yeah, that song was a real joy to put together. It was just like, let's layer this and let's layer this. It's like making your favorite toasty, right? Like, what are all the layers that I love? Let's just like chuck it in there, and I'm sure it'll taste good.
Um, is there more clarinet to come on the rest of the album?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There we
Oh
go.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
Um,
100%.
so when you say, it's got a lot of the Georgia Scarlett flavors, what would you say are like quote unquote like main ingredients that kind of make your songs like yours? Like what are some common elements that you can kind of catch from one release to the next where it's like you hear this, you kind of it's Georgia's.
I think the thing that always people pick up on with my music or say I'm playing live, I had this happen recently. I was playing live and a friend that I hadn't seen since primary school, she ran out of the store that she was working at in the city and was like, I knew it was you because of your voice. I heard your voice and I knew it was you. So I think the strongest part of my sound, the most unique part of my sound would be my voice. Um, I mean, that's my main instrument as well. I love to sing. But it's, how would I describe my voice? I use a lot of like vocal techniques, like voice cracks, which are very much within, I guess, that more country folk genre. You hear a lot of that, and that's a big part of my sound. And with every song, I make sure that that stands out the most. My vocal tone is very warm and thick, and yeah, I think that's the thing that a lot of people comment on. If they comment on anything, would be that that's Georgia Scarlett's voice. Yeah, yeah,
That's a nice little like I don't know what the word is, but that's a nice little thing to have where it's like you
mm-hmm.
just have like a built-in separation factor. You have a
Mm,
built-in thing that people can like identify you from. And like, if you listen to anybody enough, you can reference, like you can tell, hey, that's so and so's voice. Like of the
mm,
bands and the artists that I listen to more than average, like I could pick them out of a lineup pretty easily. But to have
mm.
that be somebody like to have somebody that you haven't seen in years be like, I remember that voice, and that voice wasn't even like
Yeah,
fully developed at the point when I probably last heard it. Like that's
yeah.
crazy. And that's awesome.
It's crazy. Yeah. I want fun story. In year 10, I think it was year 10, I did like a little radio competition thing here in Brizzy. And Keith Urban was one of the like guest judges. And he commented on my sound saying that I was in a lane of my own based off just hearing my voice. So I think yeah, that's always something for me that I've really tried to incorporate in all of my music is that vocal quality is always stays true to who I am. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the core of it. And that's the like, even if you were to like decide tomorrow, hey, I'm gonna go crazy and I'm just gonna be like a punk rock artist, like the night, like that's something that's going to carry through. And that's gonna be like, even if you pivot like completely 180, that's still gonna sound like you because the voice is like the main thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like that's
Mm.
regardless of what you choose to do, you can go as crazy as you please. The heart of it is still right there in the middle.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's what I'd say that's the Georgia Scarlett flavor, but I mean the instrumentation that I use is a big part of it, but my second release, what I wanted to do was keep it so stripped back and emotional because that's what the song is. And I didn't want to do anything to it. So I sat in the studio and I said, hey, I'm going to do one take of guitar and voice, and we're going to leave it at that. And it might not be the best take, but people are going to feel it because it's like a live performance. So the other main part of my sound, I'd say, is that storytelling. I really want that to come through, cut across, no matter how many instruments you have. I want it to have the same impact. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I, it's hard to sometimes want to not just like make it this big production and add all these layers and, throw a clarinet in there and stuff like that. But it's like sometimes when you just leave it at the core of what it is, it just hits different and it hits like the original idea. It's like sometimes you lose some of that original rawness when you add and produce it up in a way. Like it can sound
Mm,
really pretty and be really cool, which is sometimes like the hard part with music is it's like, do you want to do all these different things or do you want to just keep it as it is? Like there's no wrong answer, but you have to make that decision. And I find it sometimes very hard to just be like, let's just leave it as it is. Let's
it's
just
so
keep it in
hard.
its true form.
Yeah.
But, you know, I just want to put strings on everything, It's just
Yeah.
it's very
it,
tempting.
it it's very hard, especially when we are such big critics of ourselves, right? Hearing your
Yes.
voice back. I mean, you get used to it. I'm sure you get used to it during the podcast as well. I mean, I get used to it through my radio show, hearing my voice
Yeah.
so all the time. But it is hard to put something out into the world and not be a perfectionist about it. Because
Mm.
yeah, with that song, I did it through and there were a few things in the guitar where I was like, oh, that sounds a little bit funny, or maybe I just clipped that note like a bit, or that vocal part in that song as isn't as strong as I sung it 3 days ago. It's really hard because you can put a lot of pressure on yourself. But I think that if something's perfect, a lot of the time, if something's perfect, I mean, especially within this genre, it loses a lot, like you said, a lot of that feeling and a lot of that emotion. And so with that song, I just had to be really like strict on myself and be like, no, it is good. And my main, you know, message with this song is for that person to feel. So you're right. And one of my friends the other day, when she listened to my new song Cursive, I said, is Cursive now your favorite? And she goes, that's so interesting because I really like it. But I think Can't Stop Time, my second single, is now her favorite still, which is interesting because it's the most stripped back out of all of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, it's
everybody gravitates to something different.
well, yeah, that's true. And it's also like it's like with putting it out there in the world that way, it's like, okay, you're trying to tell me that I'm giving this to the world in the same way that I wrote it, like sitting in like my
Yeah.
living room. Like
Yeah.
that feels a little too close to home. But you're
It's
right.
raw.
It does let it kind of be exactly what it's needs to be without,
Mm,
being coated or sugar coated even sometimes in
mm.
a fully produced out sort of sound. You're really making me want to just kind of like I have some ideas for ones that I was maybe going to do a little bit more stripped
Yep,
back. I
yep.
think if I do it, I have
Do
you to
it.
thank. So
Yeah.
that's you're
It just,
pushing me.
I think there's nothing more than a live performance, right? Live
Right.
performances, you feel everything. You hear all the
Hmm.
little breaths and the little movements and things on the guitar, right? The squeaks of the guitar. And there's nothing more like a live performance. And if I can't have a live performance with someone in the US, right,
Hmm.
then I can create that through my
Right.
recording.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point because I
Mm,
sometimes am like, I wish this sounded the way that it sounded when I just like played it and sung it like together because I never record them together.
yeah.
But maybe I should. I don't know. Maybe I'm going into a fully stripped world and this
I
is the
think you
start of something
should.
new.
I reckon.
This could be. This could
It's
be this.
powerful.
Yeah, I'm sure you're I the wheels are turning up here, so you're working some things up here. So I we'll see. We'll see, but
Okay, okay.
I will have you to thank if that does happen. So I'll remember this. If you had to pick two or three artists that you think your music is like a combination of, who would you choose? This will be interesting
Mm,
since you say that like folk music isn't something of an inspiration, it's something that you've found
mm,
since. Usually people
mm.
always just automatically jump into these are the people that are like inspirations and they kind of match up
Yeah.
sonically. But now we are like, who do you listen to now that also kind of matches the vibe that you found first?
Yes. I mean, it's a little bit of both because there are a few artists that I did probably, find and gravitate towards before I wrote music of my own, before that songwriting started. And I think my musical influences are different to what my music sounds like. I think those are two different things. I'd say one of my biggest influences as a musician would be Marlon Williams. He's a New Zealand singer-songwriter, and he is such an incredible storyteller and has an incredible voice. So I get a lot of inspiration for my music from him. But in terms of what my music sounds like, before I started writing my music, I came across Lisa Mitchell, who's an Australian singer-songwriter. And again, when I first listened to her, it was I'm trying to think of what it's called on YouTube, but those like live session kind of videos where she just sung one of her songs, and I know what song it was. It's What Is Love by Lisa Mitchell, and I listened to it, and it was just her and her guitar, and I sat there still in awe for 4 minutes 30, however long the song is, right? It's a long song. And I just sat there, just like fully taken in by the storytelling and the presence and how much she could say with just a guitar and her voice. So that was definitely a big influence with my music, and having something that's so simple can communicate a lot. So I'd say my music sounds a little bit like hers, with I guess that idea of having like a more unique voice and that acoustic kind of quality to music. I think she also inspired me and influenced me a lot as an artist because she's just an incredible person. She delves into all sorts of aspects of the community and is just has the biggest heart. And you can hear that through her music. I'd also say my music sounds a little bit like, let's pick someone a little bit more famous, like Lizzie McAlpine, a little bit, especially her newer album. How she's got a lot of those raw acoustic instruments and, that clarinet in there and some strings, and it just really be about the story. I'd say my music sounds a little bit like hers. And one other artist I got a lot of inspiration from, actually, I lied, two other artists would be Billy Martin, if you know her, and Missy Higgins. Again, big storyteller, all about the lyrics and then that strong voice and guitar again. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I was listening to Lizzie's newest album the other day, and so
Yeah.
that's like fresh in my mind, and I'm like,
Mm,
I'm all here for that. That the You're right, the raw and just like it sounds like you're just listening to it being recorded in the studio rather than like
mm,
hearing it as like this polished finished product. Because I think I mean, it is a polished finished product, but it's like polished in a way where it's still very
mm.
not polished.
It brings her down to the level of the listeners. Like you feel like you're there with
Yeah.
her, which is incredibly powerful. And you can feel a lot more when it's done that way. Yeah, I remember when I was recording, it must have been Cursive when I was recording all of those acoustic instruments. It's that balance, I think, between, I guess, the really raw feeling and the really like ethereal, like reverberant feeling
Right.
as well. So I'd say like Lisa Mitchell, her newest album is very flowy and has that reverberant, big ethereal feel, whereas someone like Billy Martin or yeah, Lizzie McAlpine have that really stripped back raw quality. And I kind of wanted to be somewhere in the middle because my voice, the what it feels like, it needs that reverb to carry it through. Like I prefer how it sounds with my vocal techniques. I like it to be quite big. But the instruments, I want it to have that raw kind of feel, just kind of the roots of what it is. Yeah.
We're kind of tapping into an extra layer of this reflective folk thing here because I was thinking about this earlier when we were talking about that as an idea, and I was like, well, if you like that sort of like, like they, I feel like, since folk typically is something that's more simple in its instrumentation, there's sometimes a lot of like reverb to kind of like used intentionally and in certain ways to kind of fill out the rest of the space. So it's not, doesn't always feel
Mm.
super thin. Well, reverb is just reflected sound, really. Reflections, reflective. The
Mm-hmm.
reflective has a double meaning here. We're really
It's all
tapping into
connected.
something. It's all connected.
Yeah. No, it was like a major learning curve when I was recording with Josh Marks at Forbes Street Studios, Universal Music in Sydney. And it was my first time recording something to be released. And I remember when I came home and I was Zooming with him, like we are now, and talking about my influences. And I remember using people like Billy Martin. And I got back the mix and listened to my voice and went, oh, no, 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 no. That is not right. It is so raw. And the thing is, he went exactly off what I provided him. Billy Martin's voice is so raw and up close, which is so beautiful. But for me, that was a learning curve of this isn't right for what my sound is. I need that reverb. Yeah,
Sometimes it takes what you don't want to get to what you actually do want. Because it's very
exactly.
easy. It's hard to kind of be like, I want this done this way and this done that way. Because it's like there's a lot of it that's open ended, and especially when you're working with somebody else, what you envision is sometimes hard to communicate if you don't have exact references in that said way. And you viewed that you viewed Billy Martin in a different way than he did, and then you got his result from that. And so then now we're like, okay, we're going to narrow that down a little bit more, and we're going to say that that's not exactly what we're looking for
Mm,
here. So you kind of have to
yeah.
sometimes stumble into the things you don't necessarily like to find the stuff that you do like and the stuff that really feels like, okay, this is right. This is me. This is what the sound is supposed to be.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's that whole thing of finding your sound, right? You know, copying, well, being influenced by what other artists are doing, like I was, it wasn't right. I had to figure out what was my sound.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't as simple as I love Billy Martin and I love, Lizzie McAlpine's music, but it's not me.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not about making the right or wrong decision. It's about making the decision that you make the right one. It's like whichever way you choose to go with art and with music, as much of a blessing and a curse as it is, there's no such thing as a wrong way to do something or a wrong way to finish a song, but it's about whatever path you choose to take with it that you make, you take it to its fullest extent, you make it the best that it can be, and you make that choice that you made the right choice.
Yeah.
It's all you can do.
It's
It's
all it's
all
all
you
that
can
thing,
do.
right? Yeah. Yeah.
I've been taking a question from last week's artist for this week's artist. And so the question from last week's artist is, what part of the creative process do you find most rewarding?
Definitely the writing. I, whenever I sit down and you don't know what's going to happen, right? You sit down to, I don't know, maybe you want to play a cover and then you end up writing a song. Like you never know what's going to happen. You sit down with your guitar and within half hour, maybe it's 2 hours, maybe it's a few days, whatever it is, you don't know what that outcome's going to be. And I think once you get to that final product, it's like, oh my goodness, I just wrote something I'm really proud of. And that's the most exciting, fulfilling feeling. Like it's incredible. I remember last year when I wrote the album, it all happened really fast, which was so unlike me, I guess, or unlike the experiences I'd had in the past. I was just so like emotionally driven and inspired to write. And it was so exciting. I remember one of my songs, which tends to be like a bit of a crowd favorite when I play it. It's called Bookworm. It'll be my fourth single before the album. I remember my mum called her sister, and I was just like, okay, I'm going into the music room and I'm gonna just play a little bit of guitar anyway. She was on the phone for half an hour. I came out and said, "Hey mom, I think I've I think I've written a new song. I don't know. I don't know if it's good. I think it's good. I'm vibing with it. Do you want to hear it?" And it's it was the most rewarding feeling, most exciting experience because I just went blah and wrote something that I love. Yeah, I think that's the best part of being a songwriter is having that ability to write what you feel. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something special when you sit down with zero intention
Oh.
of writing like the next song and then just
Yeah.
come out with something crazy.
Oh,
And
100%.
sometimes those are like the best ones. Like it just the
Right?
ones that just kind of stumble out of nowhere and like, sometimes you stumble through like a whole verse and chorus and you're like, what just I need to write this down. Like, where did this just come from? Like, what are
Where
we
did that
doing? We
come
just kind of
from?
keep going. And it's like, but I've had songs that I've put together that I'm like, not until I look at it after the fact, I'm like, I had zero clue what I was saying or what like the message here was or what the idea here was until it was done. Like sometimes the word, it's like, where did the words come from? There's no way they're
Sometimes it's
living up here in my
subconscious.
mind. Like, there's just no way. Where did they come from?
You're feeling something. I did this the other day, actually. I wrote a song and it was, a fairly sad song, but again, I'd say it was fairly reflective. Um, but I was thinking while I was writing it, these words, they're not to do with me. These aren't my experiences. And it took me a little while for it to click that I was thinking about one of my good friends and what they were going through. And I wrote a song for them. And I didn't even know that until it clicked, maybe half hour later, when I was really thinking about those lyrics.
Yeah. No, seriously, like sometimes like I mean, there are times when you can be super intentional and like try and, craft around this idea or this message, but there are other times where it's like just as much as you didn't understand it until you heard it, I didn't understand it until it was finished.
Yeah.
Like those words, I don't know how they fell together and came about, and I didn't know what I was trying to say until I fully said it. Sometimes that's just how it goes, which just
It's
mind-boggling,
magic.
but also like the same thing that just kind of keeps that like craving of writing alive because it's like you can't get that feeling or experience from anything else. So
No,
why would I not try like just keep living in this creative space where I can just put words together and have them come out and be a thing and then have people enjoy it and understand it when I didn't even
Yeah,
understand it when I was putting it together. Like, it's crazy.
it's a
How
magical
do we do
thing.
it? I don't know.
I don't know. I honestly think it's a lot of it is subconscious. Like you'll be feeling things, but not so much externally. And you'll be writing and all just flows. And it might come out of nowhere. But again, that reflection process, that period of going, what do I feel? And where
Yeah,
did this come from? It is all like I think of music definitely as a bit of a therapy. You know, you can feel it all. And even if you don't know what you're saying or what you're talking about, it comes out and you feel so much lighter
right.
and excited and inspired. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think
Yeah.
that's yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people kind of come whether it's an intentional like I want to write music or it just kind of you sit down with the guitar and it happens like in the origin story of things, but like it whether you came at it from that perspective of it's therapeutic or it just kind of happened to fall into place that way, it just you're right. It's just like you do what you do and then it's like that whole shoulder weight is just like it's out, it's gone now. There's no, it's not weighing on you like it was before. It's now it's written in 3.5 minutes of acoustic guitar and vocals. And so then, it's the world's now, so it's not my weight
Mm,
to have to bear anymore.
mm, for sure.
What is your question for the next artist?
My question for the next artist. Ooh. What live performance impacted you the most in your, I guess, writing and your motivations as an artist? Mm,
I like that.
mm,
I don't think I've gotten a live performance related question yet. So that's a good one.
mm. I just, I think when I see an artist live, again,
It's
like I
raw.
said earlier, I feel so much more. And I mean, there was one experience for me when I saw Marlon Williams live at the beginning of last year before I wrote the album, and I hadn't really ever cried at a concert before, and I just fell apart. Like he played this one song called Arahura, and it was just him and his guitar, and it was the most beautiful experience. And I think it really did change me. And it's crazy how one experience like that can do so much.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what I'd like to do in the future with my music. If I perform live, if one person feels and connects and is impacted by that performance, my job is done.
Yeah.
I feel fulfilled. Yeah.
Yeah. What is it that you think sets you apart from other independent artists?
I think a lot of my image as an artist is a lot to do with my personality and how I can like communicate with people. Again, it comes across a lot in social media or if you come to a live show, but I have a lot of energy and I want people to have fun and enjoy the experience and enjoy being along for the ride. So I think something that sets me apart from others would be, yeah, my energy and my expression and how people can connect to me as just like a human, right? I'm not just a musician, a singer behind a microphone. I am a person. So I definitely say, come along for the ride. And I hope you enjoy it. So I'd say my personality cuts through a lot in my music and, the lyric writing. And I'd say again, my voice, I think sets me apart from other musicians. I think I'd hope you can hear a lot of the feeling through my voice. So yeah, I'd say personality and my voice and the feeling, the emotion that that comes with that and that you can take away from it yourself.
Could even say that, the reflection internally is then now being reflected externally and is now, the energy's being pushed out, everywhere else. So, like
You
you
could
said,
say that.
come along for the ride.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I have to remember that this is like we're currently at like 9 a.m. your time. And so it's
Yeah.
like if you have this energy at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, I would love to see that in a live in repped into a live performance that you're like, preparing the day for. Like that's
Yeah.
if this is how we
Yeah.
are at 9 a.m., I would love to see it at peak peak
It's crazy.
moments.
I mean, I think also as well, like, oh, you could probably hear it through my radio show if you listened. There's a lot of energy. I mean, we had a special show a few weeks back. It's for Radiothon, which is our big like subscriber drive. And I got like such an amazing artist on the show that day. And every time someone subscribed, I pulled out the harmonica and I was like screaming and like dancing around the studio in like a pink cowboy hat. And yeah, I'd say if you came to a show. I'd hope for you to leave with a smile on your face, whether it's like you've had a really good time and have had lots of fun and have had a laugh, or whether it's you've connected and you feel at peace. Those are like the two sides, I think, of
Yeah.
my music. Yeah.
It's always interesting because like whether like it like personally my stuff tends to be more slower tempoed than anything else, but it's like I
Mm.
am also the social butterfly and the one who's like I've got the energy, maybe not at 7 o'clock on a Monday night, but I usually have got the energy, and it's like that doesn't really match the music,
I'm
but
exactly the
I'll
same as
I'll
you
deliver. I'll deliver
with that.
otherwise. If you just
Yeah, yeah,
take,
yeah.
force me into the faster tempos, take the guitar away from me and I won't be slow and emotional and we'll be good.
Yeah, I'm very much like that as well. I mean, I had a show and it was at uni and it was with the record label I'm working with this year. And it was just a really chill, casual thing to have on while the uni students were around. And I was the last artist playing for that night. So I think it was about 7 o'clock on a Friday night. So it was fairly quiet. You know, it was a night of folk artists and like female like solo artists. So it was very chilled vibes and everybody was kind of sitting at tables and lying down on bean bags. And it was really chill, which is lovely. I love that. I played a few like slow, reflective songs, but I was also like, guys, it's a Friday night. Like, I'm gonna make the most of this. So I've got like a few songs that are faster, per se more upbeat, but they're not necessarily like happy songs. But I have fun with it. I've got a song called More Than a Smile, and I get everybody to sing along and I teach them all. And I got as many people to stand up at the front as I could, and I taught them the song and they were all dancing and everything. And I get to the middle part of the song where I'm, singing the part with them. Anyway, I slow it down and make it a little bit more quiet so it's just guitar. And then I start talking and I say, guys, I'm going to keep playing this chord progression over and over until I get at least five more people up here. And I just like had my little fun rock star moment where I was like, come on, get up, get up. Like, it's a Friday night. Come on, have fun with it. And so for the last bit of that song, I was just like dancing on stage and everybody was singing along and I had everybody up the front. And I think, to encourage people to have fun with it and, you know, meet someone new and have a boogie and not be worried about what other people think. I hope that people went home that night just high energy, high spirits and feeling really positive and great because it was a quiet night. But, you know, we do what we can with what we're given, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think like kudos to you for like doing that and holding out until like everybody was doing it. I don't think I could have done that. But like being a part of that, you leave and you're like, okay, like I had a better night than I ever would have like anticipated. I was expecting something super
Yeah.
chill. I got something different and I'm better for it.
Mm,
Like
mm,
that's a cool little
mm.
experience. It's always nice when you go into something, get a little bit more than you were expecting to get out of it and just have a good time. And like you said,
Right?
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's watching. Just enjoy it. Just have the moment.
If you're not having fun, the people that are listening probably aren't going to have fun because they're getting those vibes from you. So if you're having a really good time, it's more likely to rub off on someone
Oh
else.
yeah, yeah. And that's where
Yeah.
that energy comes in.
Yeah.
That's where that
Yeah.
energy comes in
Yeah.
handy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's 7 o'clock on a Friday night. There we go.
Yeah.
Ah, awesome. What impact do you want to have with your music and with your artistry?
Yeah, I think I kind of said it not long ago of I want someone to feel, I want to connect with my audience and I want them to either listen, yeah, whatever streaming platform it might be, or watching a music video, or if it's seeing me live, I want them to come out of that experience either feeling a little bit lighter, feeling um understood, like they've got something that can help them through something really hard, or maybe they've come out of an experience feeling really happy and really motivated. I think, yeah, I said it when I talked about my experience listening to Marlon Williams live and how that impacted me so much. Like if someone else has that experience with my music and they are impacted by in whatever way it is, maybe they're now inspired to make music themselves or release that one song they had doubts on, or to come out and listen to live music and crack out of their shell or just help them through an experience. I mean, my job is fulfilled. I'm extremely happy. You know, it's creating music is about, you know, I feel good out of it. You know, I'm putting something that I feel really amazing about into the world, but I also want others to feel really good, right? I'm just a musician without, you know, my listeners or the people that I connect with. I think if just one person felt something, I'd be like, yeah, that's cool. I've done my job.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Like it's just a hobby if there's no like external impact and not necessarily
Mm,
like like you're putting it out there. Like it's just it's if it's just you, then it's not that kind of experience. It's not that kind of artistry. It's not that kind of you're not giving yourself the opportunity to have that impact. But yeah, like you said, like if it reaches the people, and I love that you mentioned this before I even got to the question because that tells you that just how like it's always authentic when it comes up naturally in an unrelated question versus
mm,
like me having to get to the point. But it's there's something different about it when it's comes from such a personal place and then it gets to a personal place with somebody else. Like there's
mm.
something that's just unmatched about being like there's this thing that like we said earlier just kind of popped into your head sitting with a guitar in your lap in the middle of your living room that just kind of came to life and now is something that someone else has found some sort of form of home in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's really, without that, I don't know. That's my motivation, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all you can really do with it. That's all you can really chase is like that sort of
Mm,
personal impact,
yeah, because
you
you
know?
never know what's going to happen. Yeah, like you said earlier, of how people find an audience, how big or how small, or, get found or whatever. It's different for everyone. And it's something that's really hard to chase. You can only, do you and go for your personal goals and see where then it takes you. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just you have to enjoy the journey because if you're too focused on the destination, then you're not going to get there. Because if you don't enjoy the process to get there, because it's potentially a long process to get there, you have to be able to find these points along the way that are like these things that just are the make you keep going things and the points of impact and the what's going to keep the wheels turning and what's going to keep us moving forward. Because if it's all about just the end goal, then what's the point of the journey in the first place?
100%. Yeah. You need those motivations with music because it's a tough industry.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you don't truly love that process, then it's not really, I guess, the right pathway for you then because it's hard. It is very hard.
Yeah. I think that brings us to the final question, which is
Awesome.
ultimately why music?
Again, all of the things I've said. Why music? Well, it was really interesting because in year 12 when I was deciding what to do after school and what to study, I bounced between law, IT, teaching. Like I went through kind of all of the things. And then a month before those applications for universities had to be in, I was like, hey, mum, hey, dad, I think I have to do music. And it was a really weird experience because I'd spent so much time thinking about what I was going to do and thinking about all of these areas that I could study because I never thought of, oh, I can study music, right? I never really just thought that. But when it came down to it, I went, well, the thing that I'm motivated by most and the thing that I enjoy the most is music. That's where I feel at home. That's what I love doing. I am inspired by it and I want to see where it can go. And yeah, like I said, when I pick up the guitar, I feel like I'm home. When I'm performing in front of an audience, I'm feeling most happy and excited that I can. So, well, why music? Because I love doing it. It's the thing that inspires me most. But why else am I doing it? Like I said, to connect with people and to maybe help someone else along the journey. And I mean, the community more than anything. I'm a massive community person, especially doing stuff within community radio as well. I think the community is so important. And I think musicians, like a lot of musicians especially, forget that, we need everyone, to get anywhere. It's a whole community. It feels very individual, but when you really put yourself out there and you meet all of these incredible humans, it's like another home. You've got all of these beautiful, supportive people around you, and I haven't felt more like loved before than now with that community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're we're better together.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
if it's not it doesn't have to be a dog eat dog world. It
No.
can be a because genuinely like the people like there's so much that we have to learn from one another and there's so much that we can experience through each other and whatever however it kind of comes to fruition or operates or anything like that.
Mm.
That's where the question marks lie, but the moral of the story is that like that connection, whether it's musician to musician, artist to artist, or artist to consumer, like that's what makes the world go round. Like that's what it's ultimately all for and should be all
Mm,
about. And it's like, because without that, it's like you're playing to an empty room, or you're just putting it out there, and there, like, it's what happens on the receiving end and on the exterior part of it that is what fuels the interior part of it and makes it continue.
mm. It's a really interesting world we're living in now. And with the current music industry, it very much feels musician support musician because there are less people going out to see live music. And I find I'm getting more support from my fellow musicians than I necessarily am from the general public, which is really hard, but we do need each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it is incredible how much love is being shared in the music industry right now between musicians because it is a very hard world right now and we're all feeling it. So we're all aware of that and supportive of each other because we're all experiencing that, which I think, whilst it's really hard, it's really beautiful that, we can have an industry that is so supportive of each other. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, because that's, especially with the landscape that it's in currently, like that's the only way that things are going to go forward, is
Mm.
because if it was every man for themselves, like, good luck. But it's the unified, let's do things, and let's, in whatever, like I said, in whatever way, shape, or form it kind of exists, it's without that, there is nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I think that brings us to the end of this episode of the Why Music podcast. You can check back again next week for another conversation with another independent artist. Thanks for listening.